Previously on Clarity Off Grid.
Okay, lift and push. So welcome back. Because we had done all this planning and research and figuring and building for the Transit Trail, and then completely switched gears and bought a Sprinter, we're kind of in a unique position to be able to talk about the differences in the build between the two. So as we go along in this process, we'll be emphasizing those things that are different in the Sprinter than they would have been in the Transit Trail. There were a number of things that have just been draining my energy and causing me stress. So I tied up loose ends over the last 4 days. One of those loose ends we tied up was getting rid of the mound of trash cardboard boxes from all this van build stuff that I had acquired. And I took those to the recycle center and emptied the trash. That feels so good. The Transit Trail came with extendable side steps, but this van did not, and because it's so high, we knew we were going to need those side steps on this van. San Juan Vans happened to have a set of Alvan's side steps that they had taken off another vehicle, and we were able to get those for half price. Another loose end I needed to tie up was we just needed to finish getting the electrical and the fuel system tied in to the heater. I also had ordered stainless steel rib nuts, and those finally came on Monday. So I needed to have those stainless steel rib nuts in order to attach the fuel pump to the underside of the van and get all of that connected.
Hi, we're Matt and Kristina. We live in an off-grid, eclectic hobbit house nestled into the mountains of Colorado. After waiting for our new Ford Transit Trail Edition van for over 8 months, we've decided to throw in the towel and buy a new 2022 four-wheel drive Mercedes Sprinter. After building out Clarity One and traveling for 3 years, we've missed van life, and we're excited to finish building out our new home on wheels and getting back on the road.
Back when we were planning the Transit Trail, we bought a Marmoleum flooring, sheet flooring to put down on the floor, assuming we were going to be building our floor out of plywood, and then wanting a nice waterproof finish that is one sheet, not plank flooring, so that it would actually be waterproof. And it's also a beautiful non-toxic finish that's easy to maintain. And if it gets scratched, you can just sand it out, buff it out, and put a new coat of finish on it, and it's good as new. But this Sprinter van has a really nice cut composite floor. So I've been going back and forth with whether to take this floor up or not, whether to just use it the way it is, what to do. So after talking it over with the boss, we decided that we really did want this Marmoleum on the front half of the van. In the back of the van, it's going to be covered. It's not going to really matter. It's a nice light color, goes really well with the color of the van, and so she wanted to put that down. So what we've done is in the floor where the tie downs were, the tie downs will stick up a little bit and create an uneven surface. So we took those tie down pieces out and I filled them with a piece of rubber, and underneath that rubber I put some silicone. And now that that is setting up, I'm going to go ahead and put thin set to make a nice smooth surface over these, and then tomorrow we will come in with some adhesive, and we'll glue this flooring down in the afternoon while it's nice and warm. This piece has been cut to fit, and I'll show you here. You can see what the color of this Marmoleum is, what it looks like, and how it looks next to the van. You'll be able to see why we decided to go with this.
I know you can't see the floor right now because we just installed it. We have a piece of plywood down and we have a bunch of weights on it until that adhesive that we used to put on the floor has a chance to dry. One of the other advantages of this composite floor is that it's kind of a honeycomb and it's going to be impervious to water. So if we ever developed a leak, On our last floor, it was all plywood, so it'd be a real concern of getting rot. With this composite floor, we believe that really eliminates that stress.
Now that the loose ends are tied up, we're going to start working on the electrical today. And one of the places we need to start is finishing up the lighting that's going on the outside of the van that needs to come in. So that's a couple more penetrations that need to come into the van. And again, the design is completely different than it was going to be in the transit trail. In the trail, there was about an 18-inch gap up above the door that the awning that we ordered would have attached right to the side of that van. In this van, the door goes pretty much all the way to the roof, and so we're going to have to mount that awning up on top of the roof. Luckily, the Sprinter comes with side channels that are mounted to the roof of the van, and through DIY Van, we were able to get some brackets that will mount that Fiamma F45S awning directly to those channels on the top of the van. Also, with the shift of that door and the changes with the awning, I also had to completely redo the outside lights. So today we're going to be mounting the second of 2 porch lights on the side of the van, and then also we're going to be mounting some floodlights onto the back of the van so that we have lots of light for backing up in unusual circumstances where we may need more light. Before we get to these lights, however, I need to get this portal in. Okay, check out my step bed.
Good morning and welcome to another day on our van build. Yesterday was a bit frustrating because we had set a bunch of things that we wanted to get done, and it just seemed like every project took way more time than we expected. We were running into issues and problems, and that's just the way it goes sometimes on just about any project. But let me show you what we did get done. Joe helped us get this light installed. He took that on, so that's one more porch light that's installed. And he also got this most of the way installed. These are the back floodlights that we're going to have access to from the driver's side, where we can flip a switch if we're backing up and we need more light. These features are going to come in really handy, I think, on this van. These are things that we didn't have in Clarity 1, so they are definitely upgrades. I'm starting to think ahead to some of the touches that I can add to the van, like window coverings and how we're going to do the bug screens and bedspreads and that kind of fun stuff. So I'm kind of percolating on that. And Matt is getting really focused on getting this van wired.
In addition to the porch lights and the back lights, we also are putting in a set of lights for underneath the van. For when you're in places where there are a lot of mice or pack rats and that type of thing, having some light under there helps keep the rodents away at night. So I need to figure out how I'm going to get a wire down under the van and put those in today. It took me a little bit of thinking this morning to wrap my head around the changes, partially because of the extra lights, but also because that heater takes a 20 amp dedicated circuit that I hadn't planned on. The Propex heater that I was going to install only takes a 5 amps. So that's an extra load that I hadn't counted on. The panel that I have a 40 amp service to that, and if I add that 20 amps to it, that's going to oversize the circuit for the wire that I have and for the breaker that I have for there. So I'm going to have to run a dedicated power run to that heater, and then I figured out where I'm going to add the new switches for the exterior lights and that kind of stuff. So I think I got a handle on it now. Just to make sure that I did, I updated my spreadsheet that we had talked about in the simplified electrical video and just updated it for the included circuits that I have now. And I just have to add that separate S-bar heater circuit that takes a 20 amp breaker, and I'll be good.
You're rolling.
I'm rolling. So while Joe's down there busting his butt mounting my lights for underneath the van, I'm in here rewiring things. I figured out how I'm going to do it. So I've got my rear lights and my porch lights. So they're coming down here, and I'll be able to run them over to switches that'll be right in the end of the kitchen cabinet. So I'll have my porch lights, my under the van lights, and my rear lights all accessible right on the end of that cabinet. That way I don't have to redo the 12 volt panel that I've already made that's going on the other side of the van. So it's going to work out sweet. This morning we were watching the video that just came out, and I realized that when I was filming from the roof of the van with the GoPro, I didn't actually film putting the silicone around the bottom of the flange before I put the flange down on the MaxxAir fan. And I thought, boy, somebody watching this would probably think I was really stupid that I didn't do that. And I just want to acknowledge that this van build that we're doing here, the filming of it is just kind of filming our experience and filming what we're doing. We're not really doing a van build tutorial, and so we'll make some mistakes and we'll omit some things, so don't get too stressed out. But if you have questions about it, be sure to ask in the comments. Speaking about mistakes, there's something else I want to show you. Yesterday we had a day off, and while we were going out for a hike, I wanted to take the van down and get our new tires put on, because the street tires that were on here would barely even get us up the driveway. I definitely needed to upgrade those. And while we were getting the tires put on, I was looking in the wheel wells, and I discovered that we were so focused when we were under the van on connecting up these wires for the lights under the van that we didn't even realize that we had run the wire right through the wheel well. It's going to be a very easy fix. Just a reminder not to get our panties in a wad about things, because sometimes mistakes happen. And speaking about getting that silicone all the way around the flange and getting that sealed up well, don't worry, there's so much sealant on those. And also, I did take it to the car wash after everything was put in, and I sprayed it, and I sprayed the roof, and I sprayed the windows, and made sure that everything is sealed up and we don't have any leaks anywhere. So if anyone wants some Michelin Agilis LTX T245 75 R16 tires, brand new, they're yours for $100 a piece. So I think before I go any farther, I better fix this wire that's going through the wheel well. But I have to say, it was my friend Joe who was down here doing this part of the wiring, and I think he just didn't make the connection that this was going through the wheel well. And so it is what it is. All I need to do is actually cut into this wire. I'll pull a little slack, cut into it, splice it, reroute it, and then make a waterproof connection. So I have to say, I so appreciate Joe's help, and he did such a good job on all of this. I mean, if you look, all these places where wires are coming out of holes, they all have silicone around them so that they don't vibrate and chafe. And he was so thoughtful about all of this and just made a mistake. Come on, everybody makes a mistake. Be kind. One thing we decided to do on this sliding door is just use the panels that came in the van. They're these lightweight plastic panels, and Jesse sometimes likes to scratch at the door to get out, and we just thought these panels are lightweight, they're free, they're cut to size, so we're just going to insulate that door and use those panels. You had the deer in the headlights look.
Oh, that's just how I feel today.
So while Kristina's insulating that door, I'm going to get ready to cut spring strips for the ceiling so that we can start putting in the ceiling today.
I love working with this wool. I love sewing with it. I love insulating with it. It's just an awesome feel. Just like Clarity One, we're trying to be very conscious about using non-toxic materials in this van.
Not only is wool a great insulator, it's so easy to work with, and it's moisture absorbing, sound absorbing. It's just a really good material. And I think some people don't like to use it because they're afraid of moths, but we're gonna have this thing totally sealed up. I don't think moths are gonna be an issue. We put hemp in Clarity One, and we never had a problem with it. We love that stuff. It was also very easy to work with, but this is even easier. And if you're wondering how I'm attaching these furring strips, I literally just wallered out the holes a little bit. There are a bunch of holes in here, and I'll only need about 4 of these because this is all going to get glued as well. So I just wallered out these holes to 3/8 inches because that's how much these 1/4 inch rib nuts need. And then I'm just putting the rib nuts in. I will glue and screw these furring strips right up to those ribs, and they'll be so solid, and then I can nail and glue the ceiling to that. I drilled these holes a little bit wide, and then I'm using these 1/4 inch by 20 threads per inch flathead machine screws to screw up into the rib nuts. And then when I tighten those up, those with the holes a little bit wider, these will just countersink themselves and be flush, so that when I put the ceiling on, I've got a nice flush surface. So I realized just before I started to put these up that we hadn't insulated these ribs yet. I'm sure a lot of van builders don't do that, but I really want to have this roof insulated because we've been out in 6 degrees or even colder. You want this van really well insulated. It's a tedious process, but it'll be worth it. I designed this in so that these 1/2-inch furring strips will sort of bow over here and leave a gap there, and I just put some glue in there so that it'll be nice and solid. It'll make it so that the ceiling has a little more gradual slope, and it's gonna work sweet.
We stand by the fire, your tiny hand in mine. You're 5 feet off the ground. You rest on my shoulder as stars convey the light, so fragile in the night. In this moment, forever be. In this moment, forever be.
Well, it's a new day on our van build, and again we have beautiful sunny skies even though it's cold and it is getting to be the middle of November. Today I'm really excited because the first kind of homey touches are going in, and that'll be hopefully the cedar tongue and groove ceiling. But first we have to figure out how we're going to attach it on the forward side, get around the skylight, and how we're going to attach it and finish it off in the back.
And one of the most important trim details is
Here, this hunk of goodness.
yeah. Exactly. This hunk of goodness. So what we need to do is figure out how to tie in this tongue and groove with this corner up here, where you can see there's a big gap, and we have an angle that comes in here. And we saw at San Juan Vans them using the styrofoam pieces that actually came in the van and just covering them with carpet. And I think that's a really elegant way to deal with this. And so we're going to do the same thing before we start putting in the tongue and groove. Just like magic. Well, I thought I'd get this done in a day or maybe 2, but actually this is going on day 4. And the reason it's taking so long, 1, we had to finish the insulation, and 2, we have to do all these little cuts. We've got holes for wires, holes for lights, we've got cuts to make around all of these skylights. And then in addition to that, we had to figure out how we're going to tie in at both ends. And before we could actually tie this in, we had to wrap this, of course, and put it up, and the same on this side. A lot of little details, but it's coming together and it's looking sweet.
In these last few days, we've really made some visible progress on this van, and things are starting to really feel like they're moving towards a finished van. We have the Marmoleum laid down over that composite flooring in the kitchen area, and then we have that industrial composite flooring that'll be in the garage. We have a beautiful tongue and groove cedar ceiling finished with lights and all the trims on the MaxxAir fan and this skylight, and it's really starting to feel like a home. We're going to end this video on this happy note, and we want to send a shout out to our new patron, Steve. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you down the road.
Forever be in this moment, forever be.